Rinon released an entire video. This is what the last year in Final Fantasy XIV looked like. The highs and lows of Final Fantasy XIV's last year. That is a very long video. I'm not sure if I'm going to be uploading this, but like, I am curious on Rinon's take. I remember like his last take, specifically on 14, was really negative. At least like, yeah, this one, the blunt conversation about healing. I remember this was like a very negative video. That was funny. That was very funny. We were all laughing. Some of us were.
This is what the last year in Final Fantasy XIV looked like.
What was that random shot of some plants? Was he like in the zoo?
So 2024 has been an eventful year, both for FF14 as a game and for myself. We saw a whole new expansion release, the announcement of our very own Raid Shadow Legends, and about 37 new controversies that put the embarrassing Lalafell lifter discourse we all wish we could forget to
If you say Lalafell chair 3 times and click your heels, Pyro is gonna appear behind you and call you out for being racist.
shame. There have been soaring highs and disenchanting lows in what feels like equal measure, but I don't think the perceived state of the game at various points are quite what matters. Not really. Not to me and not to you. More so than that, it's been a year of moments, great and small, that I'll personally probably never forget. And today I want to talk about them. This is what Final Fantasy XIV has meant to me this year. The 0.5 patch cycle through to new expansion release period is always really quiet. The last Savage raid tier is far enough away in the rearview mirror that the majority of active raiders have had the chance to complete and farm it.
I didn't clear. I did not clear P12S. I don't know. I just don't like the fight. I'm sure at some point I'll go back to get the axolotl, but fuck me, do I not like that fight? Something about P1 that just throws me off. I just don't like that phase. I don't know why. I can't, like, if I could just put it into words, I cannot. I just don't like the fight. I don't know why.
There's no recent ultimate to engage them, and for others, after a disappointing expansion of Tome Farm relic questing, there isn't.
It's not for everyone, though. I get that a lot of people are unhappy that you have to get weapons with tombstones. You use tombstones to get certain material. Guess what you did before? You had to grind something instead of tombstones and exchange that for materials, only it was a lot longer and a lot more tedious. I honestly was very happy. Just for one expansion, we could chill the fuck out without grinding Crystal Tower.
Any big sparkly new content with any staying power to look forward to. The next expansion will be hype, and many have their eyes firmly planted in its direction, and they will be back to indulge, but that's almost 10 months away. Unless you're a prisoner giving away your hard-earned money to stay in jail, aka upholding your active sub to your in-game house.
What the f do we need houses for? Like, I'm an active player in the game. I raid, so I kind of am not losing my house because I just hang out there. But like, unless you have a medium or a large, or like literally any other reason, why the f do you need a house? I get it that you want like your own little space in the game. I get that. It's for some people, like for those who really love the game, they just want a cozy corner of their own in the game. But realistically, if you're looking for reasons to stay in the game, having a house is probably not one of them. I like to decorate. That's fine. You can get an apartment. Get an apartment. God knows you can get a small house almost on any server now. It's like you can get a house on any server right now. Yeah, it is fairly quiet in the housing districts. But it's like, with how quiet it is in the housing districts, I'm actually confused whether or not people are actually staying for those houses or are they actually giving up. I think I would like housing until I got one. I did nothing with it. Exactly. Like, I have a house. It's just there. It does nothing. And the FC house is mine. Yeah, pretty much same as well. It's like, I work hard to get the FC house. It's a large house, and I've decorated like multiple times. I hired decorators. I decorated myself. It's like, I work hard on it. It has a lot of history. I'd love to keep that one. But my personal house, I don't give a f. My FC house can always be like transferred to another like FC leader or one of my friends who are more active. But it's like, other than that, it's like, I don't know. My personal house is kind of pointless. I even have an apartment. It's still useless. I even have a little room inside the FC house. Also kind of useless.
After enjoying the new 0.5 Alliance raid and story, many players will lapse and come back later. It's the calm before the storm. As the new expansion beckons, the player base will swell excitedly. But until then, we're left with a much quieter Eorzea. But for me, things are very different. These are some of my favourite times to be an FF14 player. When the content release treadmill is rolling away at full speed, my playtime is beholden to the whims of Square Enix's last-minute patch announcements. My group expects me to be there to do weeklies, and I'm always waiting for the next pre-approved part of that roadmap. In the lead up to a new expansion, with upwards of 8 months of a content black hole, I'm free to frolic in the flowers and do whatever I want. That time is precious to me, and each time it comes around, I use it to make myself a new little challenge. Each time a peek into a new facet of the game that I've never really experienced or been able to appreciate before.
Man, I cleared all ultimates. Time to ERP. Time to get a role-playing handjob from a cat girl who's actually some old dude from Bulgaria. What a time to be alive. Let's go. He doesn't know that I know that he's a dude from Bulgaria. But I do.
In Shadowbringers, Bozja became my downtime passion, and for the first time ever, I completed every single relic from a set to completion. If you're on the European Data Center at that time and you queued into a Dalriada run back then, I was probably there, complete with bags under my eyes and 16 miscellaneous currencies falling out from my overstuffed pockets. Many a night was spent massacring the local population of Bozjan screamers from the northern section for quest items and market board fodder.
God, I hated collecting cards. Specifically, like, the cards you needed for the mount. There was, like, this one card of this, like, flame wizard, which was, like, a specific fate that comes after 2 other fates. And it's, like, it had such a low drop rating. God, I hated it. It was so horrible.
For about a month straight, I became what most would call obsessed, though I think I prefer to refer to it as being of singular focus.
As other professionals refer to me, I am mentally ill. Here in this industry, they call me schizophrenic.
It was genuinely fun, and my hard-fought reward was a bunch of glowy steel that was almost immediately completely relegated to being thrown into my retainer's open arms. When it came to Endwalker, however, my downtime vice was to be Party Finder, Savage, and Ultimate. I was
Okay. But why is that the backdrop? Rinon, why is that the backdrop? Cafe Cream Puff, Theo Ul Tropica Spa, Electric 6 LGBTQ Bar Lounge, Cafe Cuties is open soon. What are you doing at Party Finder? You're gonna need to specify. I did Bozja for the first time last year. It was nice seeing how busy it still is in there. Made it easy to get a relic and such. That's good. That's good. There's like a lot of people that just enjoy Eureka and a lot of people that just enjoy Bozja. If we're gonna have more operational content like that, that's gonna be great. I'm happy there are people still running all that content, because when people want to get into raids in that content, they will not feel very alone and abandoned, like Torghast or Warfront in World of Warcraft.
I was about to, at long last, experience the Progliars and the Clear Party Assassins, and of course the Never Press Mitigation Nigels firsthand. I know
Never Press Mitigation Nigel. What the is my group still filling?
this probably sounds a little bit silly, but I've always been nervous to go into Party Finder. When I was new to FF14, it was because I felt out of my depth. What if I mess up? What if I'm the problem? What if the other kids are mean to me? It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but as I played longer and expanded my experience, this anxiety over playing in Party Finder remained, mutating and becoming this amorphous mass of foreboding that I stopped even understanding myself. And it was just silly, because I wanted to help people get their clears, and I wanted to try different roles, and I wanted to overcome this weird fear I had
She said come.
internalized for no reason. So I did just that. Over the next couple of months, I amassed around 250 clears of Anabasio Savage encounters and ultimates, with practically all of them being first-time completions for somebody in the party. It was bloody fantastic too. I picked up Monk and Black Mage and got moderately acceptable on each, and I'm glad I got the chance to, because neither survived the transition through to 7.0 without major rotational and gameplay changes that made them significantly less interesting for me. I was able to clear Ultima Weapon Ultimate on every job in the game, which I made a video about, and made a real dent in both the Epic of Alexander and UCOB too, beating them on every roll. This was especially enjoyable, because some of these raids have an intrinsically different experience tackling them on, say, tank versus DPS. Carefully and precisely mapping my cooldowns to cover as many auto attacks as possible, as well as that upcoming tank buster, sneaking in that last moment positional as the boss spun because I predicted the movement perfectly, recovering a pull with fast thinking in a way that I knew would wipe most pulls in PF. I was having the time of my life, and during this, I met my one true love, John Pandemonium. P10S was just on another level.
P10S jump scare. I see P10S in my nightmares. Yeah, P10S was like a static breaker for some. It's like, if not like the first 2/3 of the fight, it was definitely like the last part of it, like during HH and some of the other mechanics. Like Limit Break 3 was practically mandatory for some of these fights, specifically healer LB3 to clarify, because resing the entire group was bis in Party Finder especially.
While pretty simple conceptually, being formed for all intents and purposes of a selection of stacks, spreads, and pairs, this fight was just precise enough and just punishing enough to be the bane of every clear party's existence. In a stroke of devilish genius, the developers saw fit to make each of those stacks an enumeration, and that if one single person missed it for any reason, be it death or malpractice, everybody else would instantly go boom. A little harsh for an early turn of Savage, sure.
Malpractice. 9 out of 10 doctors are not gonna stack with you.
But that trait, in combination with a non-standard arena structure and the fact that Pandemonium's tank busters tossed its recipients in the air like little ragdolls, meant that every single pull was hilarious. Whether you cleared or not didn't matter, because P10S was just punishing enough to make a win feel like a real victory, and just goofy enough the wipes would end up happening for the dumbest reasons, and every time it was highlight reel worthy. I miss it so much. Not every experience was positive though. Sometimes people were just rude to myself or others, and occasionally groups would disband for little to no reason without giving a fair try at clearing together, wasting everyone's time. And even less often, you'd run into progliars. I think progliars were the most awkward and frustrating to deal with. For those who don't know, it refers to people that would join a party past their own level of experience, but they just lie and claim to have that experience to get in, and hopefully they'd use that to expedite their own learning so they could skip some of those steps. Often what would result is they would hold the other 7 people back significantly, and they would get pretty indignant if somebody called them out. Now that person wasn't me. I don't usually talk unless I have to, or if I'm specifically asked a question in PF. But I do have a tangentially related story about my number 1 toxic yet valid moment during this whole Anabasios arc. So we're in P12S. We defeated the door boss. This was a clear party, so the expectation is that everybody has a decent understanding of the whole fight and just needed a little nudge over the finish line. Yet pull after pull, we would wipe to caloric theory. Something always went horribly wrong, very quickly.
Sorry, caloric theory. Go on, you have my attention.
Interestingly, the machinist in the party was always very quick to blame others, but as the mistakes built up, and I began to more acutely pay attention to who was making misplays that were causing the resets, it turned out that the machinist was the root cause of practically every one. The cycle began. Party went boom to caloric. The machinist would complain. Somebody at random would dispute what they said. A discussion would follow with no real resolution, and we'd go again. Over the next 40 minutes, this cycle whirred cyclically without fail, and then after the next inevitable caloric theory spontaneous combustion, the at this point anticipated complaints came out, this time blaming another player and telling them that they should be moving in X direction. But that wasn't right. I know how players are meant to move for this mechanic, and it certainly wasn't how this guy was stating. And why was I so confident in that?
There's always like some dude, like every few Party Finder groups that I get, that is like discussing, like, we should do the strats this way. No. We're in Party Finder, man. Let's just do the agreed strat. But I like the strat. This is actually something I got yesterday. Some dude wanted a specific type of movement on Light Rampant. Like, the stack happens inside the telegraph and then moves out of the AoE. And everyone's just like, just sprint. You should have more than enough time and movement to get into your stack. And they're like, no, I like it this way. Do it this way or I'm leaving. He didn't leave. He got kicked.
Because I made the guide. So I said as much. I said, I'm really sorry.
That's actually awkward, isn't it? Especially for Rinon or like Mr. Happy. When they like release guides, there's like Rinon strat, Mr. Happy strats. And then people are just like, these are happy brambles, this is the happy strat. And it's just like, Mr. Happy is just like, wait, hold on, what the fuck are they doing? This is not the happy strat. That's gotta be awkward. I genuinely hope I never make a strat that's named after me.
But I made the guide that you're referencing, and what you're saying is wrong. The next thing we hear is the sound of a player leaving the instance. He dipped immediately and was never seen again. The rest of the group found it hilarious, luckily, and we stuck together and got the clear with a new 8th shortly afterwards. But I do secretly feel a little guilty about that to this day. From my time in the Party Finder mines, I learned a lot though, and I think that if you can allow yourself to have the right mentality about it, you'll have a fantastic time. It's important to not have expectations more than anything. Random players of varying skill, experience, and commitment levels grouping together is a full-on gacha of capability, And whether you win or lose is almost entirely down to chance, even if you don't make mistakes and play out of your skin. So don't get upset if pulls go awry or a group disbands. Don't think I need to get my loot ASAP, because placing those expectations gives you stakes.
Expectations is like #1 destroyer of statics. If expectations are different from player to player, like even right now, my own static, it's like I only have half a static left. Like with some, we unfortunately parted poorly, but with some we parted on very good terms. But essentially, the conversation was specifically about expectations. Some people suddenly had much higher expectations than what was agreed at the very start of the expansion, and it's understandable. Some people, they enjoy the time in the static, but sometimes like not every player is made for midcore, not every player is made for casual, not every player is made for hardcore, right? And it's like it's very important that statics, or even like groups in Party Finder, everyone needs to be on the same page. Everyone needs to be on the same page. If you're joining a cleanup group, but a few pulls later you're leaving because the cleanup isn't going fast enough for you or something, I don't know. Like #1 killer of static is just differences in the expectations.
And in the Wild West of PF, the most fun is had when there are no stakes. You just want to be present for a good time, and whatever happens, happens. I've taken this mentality forward with me into Dawntrail because I've kept PFing the current Savage tier light heavyweight, helping upwards of 200 players get their clears since it first dropped at the end of July. It's been an absolute joy, and I've had so much fun. I'll keep doing it, that much is for sure. It seems that my fear of Party Finder has well and truly subsided, and in that quiet end of expansion window, I was able to open the door to a new way to play that has given me so many hours of fulfillment. I mentioned that I was nervous about running into mean-spirited individuals, and that happened occasionally, sure, but a good 90% of my interactions were positive. It doesn't matter if you mess up once or twice, people are generally understanding and kind-hearted.
Something I really like, if there is a nice person in the group and they're just not being facetious or, sarcastic, sassy, and if there is like one or few people who are like have very positive energy in the group, it can be a group saver. I shit you not. Sometimes you will have like two people who are just friends and they're just like, they join to kind of fuck around and just have fun and help people in Party Finder. You'll have some tryhards that will get salty over small mistakes or just leave on basis of nothing. Meanwhile, these positive people will like encourage a lot of people to just remain within their sphere of energy. So like being a more optimistic sort of player, it will genuinely like carry a lot of progress. Like, believe it or not, something that I've learned that is like the most important part about recruiting into statics, obviously there's a lot of like, semantics, logs, performance, whether or not they know their job, experience, etc. But the most important part is vibes. If their parses are a bit too low, it's fine. Like, parses can always be improved, mechanics can always be practiced, strats can always be learned. But the vibe check needs to be passed. If someone is not passing the vibe check, it's gonna be awkward. It's like just having a meeting. There's 4 people in the room. They're all having a productive meeting about a project they're all excited for, except for one asshole who's just like yawning in the corner, clicking his pen out of boredom, playing with a lighter or something, just checking his phone. It's like the body language of this person and the noises that coming out of him is just gonna be like drag down the rest of the team. Like, one asshole can ruin so many statics, you would not believe it.
As long as you aren't a prog liar, that is. That one's a no-no. In late January, I released a 90-minute long retrospective on the world race for the Omega Protocol Ultimate and its surrounding drama. Final Fantasy XIV progression races remind me of esports events when they're at their best. Drama and memes and a perfect encapsulation of what makes video games just fantastic in those hard-fought moments of glory. The downside is that each one of these is bookmarked on either end by what can only be described as monotony, waiting for the forerunning groups to grind and grind in the hopes of scraping together just enough magic to reveal the next great challenge. The Omega Protocol took upwards of 150 hours for World First to be claimed, and from there, the story only grew, deepening its lore and intrigue as the details of interpersonal squabbles between the victors were spilled out on the internet for all to see, outing themselves as cheaters in their infighting, and eventually gaining enough notoriety to receive a disappointed open letter from Yoshi P himself.
Let's not forget about all the funny memes. The satellite memes were like, chef's kiss, top notch. I love the satellite memes. It was very funny. Yo, almost full group. Let's go.
All things considered, made for a great story. It was the biggest video I've made to date in terms of time investment and length alike, costing in the region of 90 to 100 hours to produce. A chunk of that coming from learning how on earth to use Adobe Premiere to actually make it in the first place.
Oh god, Adobe Premiere. And I'm assuming like 10 hours of that, like 90 hours, is just Adobe crashing.
It did really well. Almost 11 months later, it stands at over 400,000 views. And it isn't just my most popular video ever, but also one of the best performing original videos about FF14 as an entire game in the last year. Whilst I'm proud of what I accomplished with it, since it released, I've been...
A bit of criticism. This is a very long part of a lot of like conversation. At least like make your character talk so that like, you know, the mouth is moving. Otherwise, this is just like... This is just like two people awkwardly looking at each other while listening to Rinon. It's just like we're just staring and staring and staring. I would love if he also just like added like this slow, subtle zoom onto like the cat girl's face. That would be funny.
bound by a sense of paralysis. Telling stories is what I want to do, what I gain the most satisfaction from, and the skill that I want to build. And a facet I think that Final Fantasy XIV content creation in general is a dearth of. But whenever I put pen to paper and storyboard another one of these tales, the brainworms wiggle their way into the center of my psyche. The next one needs to be better. Production values need to be higher. I can't tell this story.
Nope. Do not go down the rabbit hole of a YouTuber where production quality needs to be higher, I need to work more hours, I need to never sleep, etc, etc, etc. Like a lot of people will go through this. At some point, like simplicity is going to be key. Just the most simple and the most non-high, like there is a niche for editing. It's just not this one. Commentary content can be very simplified because most of the time, and I promise you, Renon, if you ever see this video, people are currently not looking at your video. They are listening to you while being the party finder or, you know, grinding ultimates. People are not exactly looking. So it's like the production quality, it's not that it's wasted, it's just that it's so necessary. It should not be distracting from the information you're presenting to your audience. You're doing a great job, mind you. I'm very proud of you. I would pat you in the head and give you a juice box.
It's not exciting enough. I need to do more than the top retrospective. And those tales, one by one, never reach completion. It started with a retrospective detailing the trials and tribulations of the discovery race of the game's big fish in Endwalker, a facet of the game that, despite having an incredible community figurehead in Fruity Snacks doing a lot of work to make big fishing accessible, is difficult to understand and appreciate to the outsider. A 15-page script and a fully edited intro later, I ditched it. I found it interesting, but I thought it would be boring to the viewer. After that was a retrospective on the Epic of Alexander.
I bet it would be like a really fun video. It's just that you're overthinking it and you're over planning production quality. You're aiming way too high. Take it easy. It doesn't need to be high quality. I would actually love to hear the fishing story, if I'm being honest. I would love to hear like any other story other than people not liking Dawntrail and some other new static drama. I would love to hear the stories about people doing any other content, fishing, role-playing. Maybe there's like the submarine community has some stories. I would love to hear those stories, if I'm being honest. I feel like that would have been actually a really good video.
On the World Race. That one is still sat there on my hard drive to this day with the rough cut finished. I wasn't happy with the script, and every time I open the Word document to refine it, I quickly lose interest and shift to an easier, more completable project. There was a third which never really...
Small tip as well. Dawntrail's garbage though. I skipped the story. I mean, I also skip, but it's like Dawntrail is... Oh, I'm gonna be hammering this point for forever, aren't I? Dawntrail is the Realm Reborn story. Because it's the story that begins at the very beginning. Every other expansion, we start midway. Because the story starts post-MSQ quests in the previous expansion, and we enter the expansion on, you know, the conflict and the midpoints in the story already high notes. We had a filler story with Final Fantasy XIV references in Endwalker, and we enter Dawntrail on Realm Reborn terms, like newbies practically. And I understand a lot of people don't like the story. I got bored as well. I started skipping in Shalani, right? But I also know people who love the story. I know some people that literally think Dawntrail is their favorite expansion because of the story. I don't like their opinion, mind you. But it's like, I'm not gonna yuck their yum. You know what I mean? It's like, if they like this expansion, doesn't mean completely garbage. But like, I understand why people don't like the story. Like, my biggest problem with Dawntrail is that there's been nothing to do for 8 months.
Pretty past the formative idea stage. Find it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna suggest something like a good advice for creatives, especially for those who work with video. This is something I've learned. Like, if you or working on a project, at certain points you need to step the fuck away and work on something else, and then come back and look at it with more refreshed eyes. Because if you keep looking at something for too long, it's gonna get either too personal, too imperfect, too detailed, and it's just like, don't work on one project for too long. Try to kind of work on at least 2 projects at the same time. But yeah, it's like I do recommend just kind of working on either 2 projects or just like one big project and one small project, so you have something to kind of step away to.
I quickly lose interest and shift.
Something I do, and something you can also do in Adobe Premiere. I don't know how beefy your PC is, but I use DaVinci Resolve. I would normally have multiple timelines. I will work on one timeline, then go downward on the other timeline. The timelines are still in front of me. I'm just working on separate projects, like separately, and I'm just like constantly refreshing myself every couple of hours whenever you're working on very long video project.
To an easier, more completable project. There was a third which never really passed the formative idea stage, with the aim of shedding light on one of the most helpful communities FF14 possesses, and the story behind their formation. That one got sidetracked with Dawntrail's release, which, more than a product of my mental block, was a victim of unfortunate timing. Lastly, there was one that I've been investing time into on and off for the past 2 months or so. That pressure of needing perfection, of being worried that my next long-form retrospective will fail and people won't care.
I feel like Rinon is falling into that content creator hole, where you need your next project to be high quality very well, but it also needs to be produced fast enough and soon enough so you can actually keep up with the, with the niches. And then when you realize you could be working on something you're a bit more motivated to do, and it's most likely is gonna, make it on time and it's gonna be a bit more current. I get that. Get out of that mindset. If you make something that you're passionate about, if you build it, they will come. Take your time, have fun with it. At the moment, you're not thinking about this as specifically something you do out of passion and love. If you're thinking like a content creator, it's just gonna stop being fun very quickly. Very, very quickly. It's something every content creator has to go through eventually.
Of being nervous about disappointing people that enjoyed the last one. Those ever-present nagging thoughts have dismantled these projects without fail, and letting them win has been one of my greatest regrets of 2024. The reason I'm telling you this, and the reason I put aside space in this video to talk about my failings, is to hold myself accountable. Next year, this year, I will release more videos I'm passionate about. I'm not going to let the anxiety win.
Don't have expectations. Never have expectations. This is why I've been very positive, in a very positive energy and positive mindset this expansion. I have 0 expectations for things. Nothing will disappoint me. I cannot be disappointed if I had no expectations to begin with. You should have expectations, but they should be low as I mean, you have some expectations, but it's like that, again, goes back to the conversation about everyone being on the same page. If everyone in the group is on the same page, those expectations will be met. They will be met very comfortably. Maybe eventually, but they will be met very comfortably. It just depends on the group.
If they suck, they suck. At least I created what I wanted to make, and I took that risk and put that thing into the world. I want to tell stories about my favorite video game and the people that make it their virtual home. And that's what I'm going to do. In commitment to that, here is a preview of my next long-form video. I'll tell you more when I have more, but I promise that you won't be waiting until 2026 for it. I hope I can do it proper justice, but I won't kill the project if it...
Strummer, where content? Strummer, where content? When video? Video when, Strummer? Strummer, video when? I check YouTube, no video, Strummer. She's gonna fall down the Barney rabbit hole.
It isn't perfect this time around.
Block.
World races and MMOs are long, drawn-out affairs. Dozens of hours of time and effort meticulously invested by rosters and their support teams to try and break through those walls the developers carefully put in place, to overcome every challenge and hope to come out with a first-place finish. They spend months in preparation together, streamlining and optimizing their communication, thought processes, and running through the possibilities. Any advantage is worthwhile.
Hey, Lonnie, how you doing?
It's because they know all too well that spending pulls without thought is a silent killer. It creeps up on you. A misunderstood conversation here, a thoughtless greed there, and quickly, hours are wasted. The wipes add up. But when the dawn rose on this race, things were different. Because instead of a wasted hour being the determining factor, this progression was decided by just a matter of moments.
Oh yeah, like... I think top was cleared with... No, top was weird. I know Peru was cleared like within an hour of each other. The GPU, let's go! Arcadian. Chad, how do we feel about Arcadian? I know we chatted a lot about like in previous raids, B10 and all that. How do we feel about Arcadian? I honestly like the raid tier, except for Sunrise. Sunrise can suck my dick. Everything else I'm kind of happy about.
Just do this clean.
One more set. Kill it, just kill it, just kill it.
Go. Come on.
Yes!
Are we free?
At the end of March began an odyssey that I never could have predicted, and to this day can't really believe occurred in the first place. I got invited to the Dawn Trail Media Tour.
Let's go!
Today, finally, I'm going to tell you how that experience was, step by step. Not only because it makes for an interesting story, but also because the number of false assumptions and misconceptions that I've seen about these events is mind-boggling, and maybe in telling my tale I can put a couple of them to rest. With Dawn Trail set for release later that year, it was clear a media tour would take place somewhere at some point, and content creators would be invited to attend and playtest, but any further details were scant. I had reached out to a member of Square Enix Europe staff that a friend had forwarded me the contact information of to put my interest forward in attending or receiving press releases for any future media tour. As I mousily typed out my request, terrified of appearing either too forward and presumptuous or too lacking in confidence of my own value, I was under zero expectation that it would amount to anything. Being invited to the media tour was my white whale, the symbolic gesture that showed my worth, that proved I'd built something that had value to this game's community. And just like the white whale, I had no real aspiration of being lucky enough to find myself face to face with it as a genuine possibility. And for 2 months, that was exactly what happened. Throughout February and March, I was knee-deep in a pretty large project, which ended up being released as this video. I still like it a lot. To me, it's a meaningful look back at Endwalker through the lenses of the content creators that shared their hobby with the world. Whilst I don't think this directly influenced the email I would receive the following week, certainly couldn't have hurt. Either way, a member of the Square Enix team reached out to me the next week and asked if we could schedule a call. Surprised and kind of elated, I accepted and made myself available, and the discussion that followed was great. He was a lovely bloke, and we spent the better part of an hour yapping about the game, the kind of content I make, and near the tail end he told me that a media tour would be taking place in a few months, which they'd love to have me at. It wasn't an official invite. That would end up coming a few weeks later as further information about the event was shared, but it was implicitly all but a given. At this point, I was not under any kind of non-disclosure agreement, but I kept the news to myself, in part out of respect, and equally because I couldn't quite believe it was real and expected to be told that a mistake was made at any moment, and that actually no, they would much prefer to invite somebody else instead. In time, I'd come to learn more. It was to take place in Germany, Berlin, right at the end of May, a city that...
I'm a bit real with some of the people that were in the media tour. Not to diminish Rin's value. I think Rin is one of the people who must be in the media tour, if I'm being honest. But some people really need to not fucking be in there. Some of the journos or some of, you know, other content creators there, at this point I'm just tired of ranting about them. But honestly, I don't know. The last media tour, like once we saw who was actually in it, it's like I was very confused compared to like some of the last ones. It's like I'm very confused. I'm not sure if I'm being honest, but I'm glad Rin got to go.
That I had lived in many years ago and was endlessly excited to get the chance to return to, even if only for a day or two. We'd fly out on the Wednesday, the event would take place on the Thursday, and we'd return home on the Friday. Square Enix would cover all expenses, all planning. I just needed to turn up. I had no idea which other content creators had been invited, though obviously I had my suspicions, and I couldn't even directly ask anybody because at that point I had signed an NDA, and part of that document included me not mentioning that I had been invited to the tour itself until the embargo lifted in June. So I prepared as best I could, making notes on things I'd be curious to playtest, researching what creators had produced in the past after media tour events, and mostly I waited anxiously. Of course, when the day came, things immediately didn't go to plan. I had a 5 AM start thanks to the 4 hours of trains ahead of me in order to reach the airport in time, and yet it wasn't until 2 AM the previous night that I was finally able to drag myself to bed. Last minute work cropped up that needed dealing with, and it couldn't wait. So when my alarms blasted my eardrums and I woke up bleary-eyed and disoriented, I couldn't say that excitement was the main emotion I was feeling.
Oh no.
After a few hours of watching the dreary British countryside roll through the train window, wishing that I had it in me to close my eyes and rest up, but failing to manifest it into reality, we arrived at Manchester Airport. 45
Jesus Christ, Manchester of all places. I mean, I guess it could make sense.
5 minutes later, I managed to make it through security and subsequently found my terminal with surprisingly little issue, and well over an hour to kill until boarding.
To be fair, any airport is much better than London Stansted. Avoid Stansted at all costs. Because what Stansted has done, they are lacking people, like they're lacking staff to the point that they've combined all lines into one. So it doesn't matter if you come in 3 hours early, you're gonna be in queue with some asshole who has a flight in an hour, and some other asshole who has a flight in 2 hours, and some asshole who's already late, but he's still in queue. He's been stuck there. It's so stupid. Like when I was going back from London, like I came to the airport 3 hours early. 3 hours early. I'm very punctual. I'm very paranoid about being punctual for things like airports or just coming to meetings, right? 3 hours, and I was still late to my flight. I was still late to my flight 3 hours early. Because they set up a line like this. I had to spend a night in a hotel and I had a Among Us cock chair next to my bed. It was a very depressing night.
It was there that I took what was definitely my riskiest decision of the entire trip. I found a comfy little sofa out of the way, I leaned back on it, and I almost immediately fell asleep. No alarm set, no friend to wake me up if timing got tight, just rolling the dice and risking the entire media tour trip for the love of the game. I remember waking up in a panic, checking the time, and sigh of relief, realizing that I was actually totally safe. Top 3 best sighs of relief of 2024, easily. I remember seeing a guy walking past that looked awfully like Preach, but I was far too groggy to give a shit. It made sense that he would be there, obviously. He was one of the people that I'd expected to be a lock-in for the media tour in Europe. 2 flights and 1 layover later, which, thanks to that, for all intents and purposes, a 90-minute flight was stretched out into an almost 6-hour epic. We landed in Berlin. We'd been given instructions to just hop in taxis and head to our hotel, and that somebody on the SE staff would meet us as we arrived and pay for the taxi. I remember thinking it was absolutely wild that we were going by individual taxis because the S-Bahn was nearby, cheap, and had a stop 5 minutes away from the hotel, and basically everything is in English, so it doesn't matter if you don't speak a word of German. But who was I to question the major international conglomerate that was footing the bill? If they wanted to drop like 80 euros per overpriced airport taxi, then I was going to sit down and enjoy the ride. We were staying at the Mercure Hotel, which had this absurdly gorgeous view out of the majority of the rooms, including mine, overlooking Potsdam Harbour. I didn't film whilst I was there, but just look at this picture that I yoinked off Google Images. That's the hotel right there, and when it got dark, the city lights bounced off the water just right and created this genuine, idyllic storybook scene. It was absolutely lovely. Creators had come from all over, different countries, cities in the UK, and in the case of Sarah Jane, who also attended, from Australia on the other side of the planet.
Holy shit. Can you imagine coming over to Germany for like a couple of days, all the way from Australia, and everything's upside down to you?
The Manchester flight was the last to arrive, and with us finally here, the plan was to meet up in the hotel lobby, head to a restaurant for dinner, and get an early night before the event itself the next day. We went to this burger place, 7 out of 10, pretty good, and it was here that I finally had a chance to meet some other FF14 content creators for the first time. I guess if you don't know me personally, or don't hang out in my stream, this may not be immediately obvious, but I'm a bit introverted. Always happy to validate the world's preconceived notions about gamers, you know? But because of that, I haven't had many interactions with other creators. I don't play the social game or make an effort in involving myself with events. So aside from streamers that I've played with...
Networking and socializing is such a tiring thing. Like, legit. It's like, I now have some friends who are content creators, and I gave up on anything else. Socializing, networking, Twitter interactions, that. I deleted Twitter. I don't give a shit. I just have some friends that I can appreciate the fuck out of, and that's it. That's plenty enough for me. I don't care about socializing, networking, collabing. I'm just gonna play games with my friends. That's it. I don't have collabs. I just hang out with my friends. Some of them do stream. Some of them are content creators. It's like, but I just don't consider it a collab anymore. It's just hanging out with my friends. And there's also chat staring at us, doing things, freaks.
with in a raiding environment, or close personal friends like Stahl, I can count my personal conversations with other creators on one hand, actually. So, it was a fortunate stroke of luck that the first person I got to meet and have a chat with was one of those creators that I've gotten to know beforehand, Yoni. Thoughtful, eloquent, and more
Meowdy.
importantly, generally great company to enjoy a beer with. That evening in general was filled with meetings. OK Mage, Pint, Shenpai, Inochi, Ben, Noobtoons, many more people, all just very pleasant people. And for me, it was the first time I've ever hung out in real life with a group that plays FF14. At first, it was a little jarring, hearing people discussing current job balance or their recent clear.
Can you imagine, like, you're finally socializing with other people, you're out for this really cool event out in Germany with other content creators who love 14, and the entire time all you talk about is job balances. Man, I wish Bard was buffed.
Is over dinner, conversations that have generally been reserved solely for in the company of online friends of a Discord, but it certainly wasn't unwelcome. The next morning, they loaded us up in a coach like a gaggle of schoolchildren heading on a day trip and drove us towards the event. In keeping with the theme of Dawn Trail, at least somewhat, the venue for the media tour was the Potsdam Biosphere, which is a whole-ass tropical botanical garden situated on the outskirts of the city itself. I can't say it's what I expected for a video game press event. My mental image was more anticipating black tablecloths and gaudy RGB lighting than the log-flanked walls and terrarium-clad corridors of the makeshift conference hall we'd be using. They hastily led us through a tour of the garden itself, the uncomfortable humidity blasting us as we entered being immediately forgotten thanks to the utterly insane sight of butterflies, birds, and fish darting through man-made rivers and 40-foot tropical trees. Then we were swiftly led through some side door into a hall that felt so diametrically opposed to the experience we'd just had. Rows of PCs set up on desks, a huge conference table, a stage and projector setup, flanked by seating for viewers.
So basically they just made like a makeshift internet cafe. That's kind of neat. At least like everyone's in the same room, which is like really cool. It still feels like a social event, you know what I mean?
Thankfully, fresh, cool air. They even had an open bar with tropical FF14 themed cocktails. I suppose it makes sense really, because the secondary point of press events like this media tour are to give attendees a good experience that they subsequently want to tell stories about and share with their audiences just like this. The Amazonian rainforest is the conversation piece. It's the equivalent of a cheese fondue at the dinner party. We discovered what that stage was for shortly after. The day begun with a keynote presented by Yoshida, eerily reminiscent of the average live letter in all but length. This one sat at a much more...
Remember that you are on the A. Please keep this in-event secret or we will find you and shoot you. Please look forward to it.
manageable 30 minutes, and was laden with hurried disclaimers about the unfinished nature of the test build we'd be playing, flanked by carefully worded promises that were certain to resonate. For example, it was here that a discussion about increasing the game's reward structure was had, with the promise of us seeing the fruits of that labor in full force by patch 7.3. He looked exhausted, if I'm
7.3. Jesus Christ. So potentially in like, if I'm counting right, like 12 months. So basically around November time, October, no, fuck it, let's just say December. So around December time is when we're gonna see the fruits of this labor. Holy shit, another entire year. It's fine. We got nothing else to do.
I'm honest, and I could see why. The day before they had the French language media tour, then today would be the English language, and presumably a German language event would be held the next day or at some other point. Directly after our keynote, he funneled himself off into a side room and began taking interviews with creators and journalists for practically the entire afternoon, each a 30-plus minute deep dive of technical questions and specific requests, before rushing out to attend the German Dawn Trail fan gathering that was taking place at the same venue that evening. If every workday in the lead up to an expansion launch looked anything like this, the man is practically a machine. As Yoshida made his exit, we were handed folders filled with information on the new jobs, the content available to play in the media tour build, and notes on the rules and specifications of how to capture footage.
And just like small text at the bottom, do not tell anyone or we will find you and we will kill you.
Essentially, we had a pre-arranged seating plan and would record via OBS and could record whatever we wanted, really, with the caveat being that it would be vetted by staff after the event and sent out to us a day or two afterwards if approved. The preset seating plan was partially to streamline this process, but secondarily to aid in leak prevention. Each individual user had subtly unique UI setups, slightly different menu sizes and positions that you would only really notice if you paid attention and cross-referenced. And each desktop had a hidden unique identifier that I'm not even going to try and pretend I understand the specifics of. So, when leaks inevitably did find their way onto the internet, the culprit could be
What the fuck is this? Why are there puzzles?
quickly and quietly taken out back and given the Lenny treatment.
and I get the Tinder rap.
We had about 7 hours to play, which quickly brought me to the stark realization that 7 hours is just not enough time at all. There were 21 jobs to break down and test, 2 of which had entirely new kits to grapple with, a new dungeon, A ranks wandering the overworld, 3 new map locations to explore, all of the artifact gear sets, an early version of the graphical update was functional, and a bunch of quality of life updates to sift through. Even if I did literally nothing aside from hit dummies and take notes on combat jobs, I would only get 20 minutes with each job. 20 minutes to check tooltips for screenshots, get footage of the rotation, think of and test as many intricacies as possible, and then move on to the next. With entries like Summoner, that is easy enough.
Holy shit. Like, the more I think about it, like, I get that it's 7 hours. You gotta be, like, under a lot of stress, especially when you're entering, like, an environment that you are not familiar with. You kind of know, like, you know, the bullet points of what you're looking forward to. New jobs, you know, graphical update, but you gotta explore it, and at some point you're just gonna be told, get out. 7 hours is not enough. Like, Rin is right, like, we got, like, over 20 jobs now. Obviously, they're not checking Blue Mage, but it's, like, it's still, that is not enough.
But in other cases, you have jobs like Black Mage, with a ton of nuance that were recipient to sweeping alterations, and their dedicated player base wants every single micro detail showcase, and will call you clueless and awful if you miss even a single one. But when you factor in doing a run of the new dungeon, recording footage of each of the artifact sets to use as B-roll, or participating in an overwhelmingly messy kill of an A rank, that 20-minute window per job slips away.
So wait, hold on. They had like 7 hours. They had to explore everything. When the f did they have time to solo dungeons? Remember that drama over the one that prompted the entire healer strike? In 7 hours, they were playing a lot of things, testing dungeons, doing other jobs. When the f did they have time to solo a dungeon? What the f was Xena doing there?
Piece by piece. And all too quickly, the session was just over. I had cut my lofty ambitions of covering absolutely everything after realizing that they were not founded in any possible reality, and instead I focused exclusively on the jobs. Working surgically, I had developed a routine of recording the tooltips, hitting a dummy, making some notes, testing whatever came to mind in those first 10 minutes, then showcasing each new animation and the gear individually. As we were working, Skronic staff handed out these backpacks for each attendee as a small thank you, they said. Now, I didn't open mine until I got back to the hotel that evening, but what really shone from its contents was this gorgeous Dawntrail-themed functional compass with a journey westwards towards Toral engraved on the inside. The backpack was actually of exceptional quality as well, placing it firmly within too nice to actually use, and therefore it'll sit on a shelf instead territory. We ate food, we did a lot of yapping, we shared some drinks, and we went to bed. The next day people would be heading home, but because different groups had different routes home, departures would be spread out across the day. Some needed to be at the airport as early as 9 AM and would be home nice and promptly. Others had to wait till the afternoon, or in my case, the flight wouldn't leave until the late evening. I wasn't due to land in the UK until almost 11 PM, with just barely enough time to catch the last train home, assuming there were 0 delays. So, I made some plans. I was going to meet a member of my static in real life for the very first time. This is Ilon. You can picture him as a white-haired male Vieira, firstly because I don't want to dox him, and secondly because that's exactly what I also pictured him as. He's been my co-healer since Dragon Song's Reprise released, and at this point we're good pals. Instead of me dossing around the airport for the better part of the day, because he was a Berliner, we decided to meet up and get some Korean food together.
Ooh.
And as expected, it was goddamn sensational. Look at this place. I was under NDA for the media tour, so I couldn't exactly tell my hardcore FF14 raider friend that I had just come from playing the unreleased expansion the previous day. But I think it's fair to say that he had an inkling, considering I was carting around a backpack with Dawntrail branding on the front. Usually
that might be a bit of a getaway. Yeah. Just a lot of just like loot on you that just says to raw.
1 + 1 equals
just a bunch of stickers and patches and like badges that say media tour attendee. I hope he doesn't guess what I'm doing here.
2, after all. He gave me a lift to the airport, we said our goodbyes, and I found my terminal. Inevitably, my flight home was delayed by almost 2 hours, making me miss that all-important final train home. I was stranded. One thing that I kind of neglected to mention is that the embargo would be lifting just 6 days after the European media event. We were the last to attend. Japan had been first, followed by North America, and with a week separating each region, that left EU with the short straw. We had just a few short days to prepare all of our coverage, and with me being stranded halfway across the country for one of them, I made a choice. Instead of checking into a hotel, resting up, and going home in the morning, I decided to work through the night at the airport, catch the first train home at 5 a.m. instead. I'd be scheduled to get back around 10 a.m. according for all changeovers, I'd take a power nap for a couple of hours, and then start editing. Yes, that's a terrible plan. And yes, it did not feel good in the slightest. But it worked. I scripted all 4 healer videos that night, and after a small sleep when I got home, I grinded like a demon. I put together 21 videos for the embargo lift, finishing the final one just 7 hours before release. All things considered, I count it as a win.
It definitely is a win. Like, the content Rinon did release was really good. It was like some of the videos that I genuinely enjoyed watching and listening to, because some people just literally just like showed some footage and just talked over it. Like, very little effort was put into their content. So I did appreciate Rinon's specific release. Good job, Rinon.
It was such a formative experience for me as a content creator. I learned a lot. I hope I get to go again. If I do, at least I'll have a much better idea of what to expect, which means then I can have an action plan of how to cover it more productively. I can do it better, that much I'm sure of. If I don't get a chance, if I fade away into relative obscurity, I will always feel like I accomplished something here. I'll always be a little bit proud of myself. Now, at some point during my pre-expansion Party Finder Demon arc, I ran into a player that really stuck with me. I was trawling the Party Finder browser for some ultimates and anything would fit the bill, when I saw a description that gave me pause. The unending coil of Bahamut, add prog into kill. I have a handicap and do my best. I play one-handed, so please understand, don't judge my DPS.
Oh.
It's not often you run into somebody that is so willing to openly put their cards on the table like that. In order to be accommodating to others, rather than joining parties, they put up their own.
Add prog into kill while playing one-handed. Ooh. That is very impressive.
Admitting that they might have a tougher time doing damage and waiting for people that didn't mind that and were happy to accommodate. I respected it a lot, honestly. It was heartening to see that the party filled fairly rapidly. I will res you.
Oh no! Oh no! The bait! The bait! I need to get myself a Sage weapon. Just because Sage is so good in T and
That was certainly something.
not UCOB, but like
We're
ooh.
definitely not skipping.
I'm not sure about UCOB. But in T and
It's
ooh,
fine,
it's like
it's
so
fine,
fucking good.
yeah, they're all fine.
I really need to get
They're
myself
all
a Sage weapon
fine.
to also be best. Although Sage needs higher spell speed, doesn't it? We'll see. Maybe I'll be at
We can
2.5
work with this.
Stage
We
Andy.
go again. Another unfortunate event in Nail later, and our dancer had to go.
What is that in the corner? Chicken, walkfish, player gold, and it's just chicken that shows how many kilograms and gold. What is this? I want to know. I'm very curious. I'm kind of very fascinated by this.
In fairness, they'd said they had a pretty limited amount of free time upon joining, and somehow it had taken us almost an hour to fill the party in the first place. So it is what it is. We were back in the mines. But rather than gaining players, we were losing them. I had initially joined on Sage because I'm a healer main, and I felt pretty confident in my ability to keep a run going in all but the worst case insta-kill mechanic failing scenarios. Sage is absolutely busted good at level 70, with the ability to shield
Yeah.
while moving, use Kerachol constantly without any real cost, and effortlessly outperform level 70 Scholar in basically every category, except straight
Yeah.
Adlo strength.
That's true.
But maybe in doing so, I was limiting the pool of helpers that we had access to. So impulsively, I offered to swap to tank in my eagerness to help, a decision which was questionable at best considering that I'd never actually done the fight on the
Why
roll
would
in
you-
the first place.
Why would you do that?
Let me quickly take a little detour and teach you about the real point of UCOB. These guys. These are Neurolinks. And as a tank during Twintania, the first phase of the encounter, it's your responsibility to place each of the 3 of them in particular spots across the arena, one by one. The group needs them there for later on, as it'll become essential to cleanly passing mechanics further down the road. Luckily, there are markers for reference of the placement of each, and the positioning doesn't really need to be too perfect. As long as you're kind of on the marker-ish, it's totally fine. But this is the wrong attitude, because your Neuralink placement dictates your skill in this game, much better than some silly funny numbers ever could.
I wouldn't go that deep. Like the positioning of bosses is like very important in this game. But like the position of neural links, it's put them on the markers and don't think too much on it. At least that's my thoughts on this.
If your group chat doesn't fawn over clips of perfect neurolinks, like they're photographs of your newborn, I would argue.
What? Literally, the only time anything came close to that was Neuralink. I'm adding this next to my Neuralink collection. That's a hot Neuralink. Hot Neuralinks in your area. If someone DM'd me a Neuralink like that, I would immediately be interested. Stop sending me unsolicited Neuralink pictures.
That your priorities are wonky. So, I spent every pull painstakingly positioning Twintania, inching and shifting around twisters and mechanics and other people to try my best to get a set of Neurolinks that would make my chat proud enough to be worth sticking on the fridge. Tanking was pretty chill, it turned out, and after a few attempts, we made it to Heaven's Fall Trio, one of the most regular wipe points. As the knockback went off, the all too recognizable sound of a tower...
For those who don't know, I'm very shit at this mechanic. When I progged UCOB, I cleared it in like 6 days, which was honestly amazing. I cleared it on Samurai too. But I was so shit at this mechanic, a friend of mine, Pato, literally made a whole edit about me not knowing how to count to 4. He had a whole Rocky montage of me like getting better at counting from 1 to 4. Great times, great times.
Being missed rang through my ears. In all those recent evenings of failed attempts, I'd heard this play out many times. What comes next is massive damage, barely survivable with heavy mitigation, and a huge 2-minute long damage down that scuppers your ability to do more than carefully prod at the boss for the rest of the phase. Luckily, the Gunbreaker hit Tank LB, and it gave us the defensives we needed to survive the towers. Well, most of us, and we forged ahead. You only need to press Bahamut under 60% before the end of Phase 3 in order to avoid a wipe state later on. So we passed 10 strike and made it all the way to Grand Octet without any further difficulty. With a new personal best in the bag, we had just 2 phases to see before Fury Mizu the Machinist was a legend. But beforehand, we needed to tackle the toughest part of the fight, the ads phase, in which you combat both Twintania and Nail simultaneously, dealing with combinations of both their phases, whilst ensuring that the party does roughly equal damage to both of the bosses at once.
Rin is correct in saying that it's one of the more... It's a very important phase. It's very... It's not like a difficult phase, but it's very important to know what the fuck you're doing and just do what you're doing like correctly. You know? It's like... I'm trying to like describe the phase correctly. Like, it's not hard, but it needs to be done right. You need to respect the phase. And watch guides. Like, study the phase as much as fucking possible. Watch another guide on the same phase as much as possible. Ignore Hector guides about this phase, because Hector literally suggests like sacrificing one of the tanks and, you know, letting someone die because he couldn't figure out how to solve it and what solution to offer. There are guides that explain how to do this phase. Just respect the ad phase. It's very important. It's a fun phase.
Once. The group was fatigued, though, and decided to break for dinner. We'd try our luck later on. 2 hours later, the PF was back up, and this time, I would complete the roll trifecta by joining on DPS. The break had been worthwhile because we made it to ads for the first time in short order. The first cycle went pretty decently. Nothing too untoward happened. As the second cycle of nail quotes, fireballs, hatches, and the constant dink, dink, dink at the tank's HP bars by the bosses went out, things were looking bright for our chances.
That looks really good.
Oh
no.
Well.
Oh no. Is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? Chat, I want you to understand, like, oh no. Someone's dying. Maybe. Possibly still might be doable. Like, UCOB can be carried by really good healers. If your healers are competent, it can be very easily carried. But sometimes you cannot carry stupid. Or you cannot carry silly. People make mistakes. I'm not going to assume people are stupid in this group. But they cannot carry the silly.
I don't want it. Luckily, despite those little hiccups, it felt like we'd gotten together a group that had the consistency to go the distance. A handful of tries later, the trios came and went cleanly once more, we passed by Grand Octet, and had the opportunity to challenge the ad duo. For a little bit, at least. Then on the very next try, we met them again. If we make it through this double battle, we'll be at the last phase of the fight, and the worst is firmly behind us. But it was...
Like, if they get to the last phase, The machinist doesn't really need to do much other than do a bit of DPS and just be in the stack on time. Dodge Exa flares by just following the group and just be in the stack. That's it. The cooldowns, everything, it can be sorted by everyone else in the group who are competent in the fight. But it's like once you're in the last phase, if you just play safe and you're in the right place at the right time, without greeting, without, you can let go of the keyboard if you got like 7 other people or even 6 other people who are, confident in the fight, and you will be on the finish line.
Wasn't enough. Another wipe and the group...
Just to clarify, I'm talking about specifically like nowadays, not like if you would be doing this then. It's essentially just because of how jobs have changed and because of how scaling has changed as well.
fell apart. We'd run out of time. We hadn't managed to get the win on the first evening on the end, and despite being willing to help out each evening until the win was ours, I'd done something very stupid. I neglected to give myself any way to contact Fury. I didn't add them as a friend on FF14, I didn't get their Discord username, nothing. Fate would decide if our paths crossed again. When I booted stream the next evening, I hopped on the game and just kept an eye out as I went about my normal activities. Surely, that alone would be enough.
This is what I love about specifically high-end raiders. They will hunt you down to help you clear a fight. I shit you not. I literally had the same experience when I was doing UCOB. When, like, on the last 2 days, I was literally ambushed. The moment my party finder went up, before I even posted on LPDU, it filled. It filled instantly. I had, like, almost a full group instantly because people were there. If you're part of the community, if you interact with people, and if you're not being an asshole or a prog liar, people will, they will be willing to help you with your prog. There's a lot of like sketchy characters on LPD, but like the main community of LPDU, the raiders who just enjoy raiding, who enjoy their favorite ultimate fight, it's good, man. it's so satisfying to see just people wanting to help you get a clear.
Surely. And funnily enough, it actually did work. 2 hours later, that magical FM machinist UCOB adds into clear party with the exact same description we'd seen yesterday popped up into view. It was game time. Our first handful of pulls were middling, but on the plus side it didn't take 45 minutes to fill the party like it had yesterday. Regardless of our success rate, Fury was developing muscle memory and cleaning up pain points. These pulls were valuable. Their consistency was skyrocketing and I was getting hopeful.
Yeah.
And then, I made a terrible mistake.
Oh, it's time, chat. This is it. I'm gonna jinx the pull.
What happened? Oh
Huh?
no.
What?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
I jinxed the pull!
Oh no. So unfortunate. That is
The
so
entire
unlucky.
European FF14 data center went down for just a few moments.
Holy shit,
throwing
that is
everybody
so
out of the
unlucky.
game and into a player queue 100 strong. I was lucky and managed to get into the game in just a few minutes, but our tank was not so fortunate. As people trickled in one by one, being able to log back into the game, we restlessly hopped around the coil border walls and waited. 15 minutes later, it was time to cut our losses and replace them.
Oh no.
This entire endeavor is on a timer. We have just a handful of hours until the servers go down once more, this time
no.
intentionally, for maintenance.
The suspense is
Fury's
killing me.
UCOB aspirations will be put on ice for another day, so we keep trying. The only breaks taking place when somebody inevitably drops from the party and we have to re-recruit, shuffling roles regularly to make space for newcomers. Near the end of the night, after almost 5 hours of trading mistakes...
Hold on, let me watch that again. That looks like I know how you can locate like the safe spot, but just spinning the camera like that on controller, that looks very
endeavor
frustrating.
is
Hold on,
timer.
hold on.
We have just a handful of hours until the servers go down once more, this time intentionally.
Is Rinon
for
just
maintenance.
spinning the camera?
Fury's UCOB aspirations will be put on ice for another day, so we keep trying. The only breaks taking place when somebody inevitably
Blackfire
drops from the
Trio?
party and we have to re-recruit, shuffling roles regularly to make space
Yeah,
for
just
newcomers.
rotating the camera until
Near
you
the end of the
find
night,
nail.
after almost 5 hours of trading mistakes between party members one after another, we strike gold and reach Pro Point once more.
Yo, let's
The
go.
first cycle doesn't go completely to plan as Fury
But yeah, I'm invested in this now. Suspense is killing me. If Rinon just released a video just about this one event, I would I love the shit out of these. I love the shit out of these. Of people just like talking about their journey of clearing a fight. I love these stories.
takes a twister, but in a stroke of luck, nobody else is caught inside its maelstrom.
Yo!
keeping the pull
Is this the
alive.
clear?
The first cycle comes and goes.
I'm
The tanks
actually on
swap
this-
oncoming
on the edge of my
thrusters
seat.
to avoid dying to their respective vulns, and the second cycle starts. It's looking good to begin with. The fireballs are clean. Fury is doing a stellar job as a beta, keeping them out of the group and giving us the space we need to do the mechanics. The quotes go out, we position correctly. One player just forgets to stack for the stack mechanic, finding himself the unfortunate target of a huge death hit to the face, instantly annihilating him. Then, in quick succession, we lose 2 more players to a catastrophic
it's still
twister.
doable, still doable.
5 alive.
Chat, believe.
Both tanks are still standing and 1 healer. Twin and Nail are both below 10%. Another Buster incoming. We swap again, burning through our cooldowns to take the pressure off our mana-starved healer, swapping targets once more and using all the self-heals we can afford. 5% apiece. Enrage is coming in. The ranged LB goes off. We have no surviving caster, so this is the best we've got. 2%, 1%. Enrage is so tight.
Let's go, let's
And
go,
then
let's go.
finally, Twin and Nail fall. What follows is a soft reset in which dead players are naturally revived by the Phoenix, provided a double damage buff, and left
This
to
is
witness
so good.
Bahamut's final form, Golden Bahamut. This phase is simple mechanically, with only
Chat, watching someone proc is the most fun to watch. Not someone clearing the fight or farming the fight. Watching someone prog a fight, that is the most fun ever. That is always going to be the most fun ever to watch.
3 challenges to wrestle with. Archmorn, a multi-hit tank buster shared between both tanks, increasing in the number of hits each time it occurs. Mornafar, a massive share attack that the party stacks and expends mitigation to survive, and a huge pulsing exaflares, their very first iteration, keeping raiders on their toes. This was a pressure check, through and through, and new players often succumbed. This was Fury's first time seeing Golden Bahamut.
Ooh.
With just 30 minutes remaining until the servers shut down for maintenance, Golden Bahamut becomes targetable and the final battle begins.
Let's go!
The Raid and Tank Buster at the start go off without a hitch, and now it's time for Exaflares. We lose Fury on the way, and the punishing thing about this phase is that if you die once, you permanently lose that buff that Phoenix bestowed.
The first time when I got to Bahamut, we basically went through the ad phase. I was able to just kind of... Honestly, I was very lucky. I just got through... We somehow got through ad phase, and I was very lucky. We were in Heaven's Fall Prog. We got it done. We got to ads. I somehow got through ads. We got to Golden Bahamut. I died. I didn't get the buff. But then, either I missed the stack or something. It's like people lost the buff, and we didn't have enough damage, and we... Like, the boss was this close to dying. Like, the enrage. The Loki clear despair. But still, we got it in the end. We got it in the end.
Meaning that for all intents and purposes, for the rest of the phase,
We should
you're
do it
throwing
again.
peanuts at the enemy. This isn't ideal, but we can still clear as long as nothing else goes wrong. The group stays calm and pushes through the next buster, my invuln solo, and the stack, losing Fury again to an unfortunate respawn
This
as
is
they
still
tried to
doable.
orient themselves. And then the cycle continued into another wave of pulsing exaflares,
Let's look at that drop again. Look at that. That's a spread low and everything. Missing just one person.
losing Fury again
Nafa.
to an unfortunate respawn as they tried
And-
to orient themselves. And then the cycle continued.
Ooh, look at those health bars. Ooh, that's with limit break too. Holy shit. Limit break and everything. Oh,
Into another wave of pulsing exaflares.
they'll be was
Here we
late.
lost
It
our
was,
summoner.
but still.
And this was where DPS became a concern. At level 70, Summoner was the strongest job at the game at the time, bar none, able to output insane amounts of burst DPS with 0 rotational difficulties, and losing the Phoenix buff on our Summoner in the first half of the phase is pretty rough. We now only have 2 DPS that still do the amount of damage that they should be. Pressing on, we eventually make it to the final stack of the fight.
Yo, 3%. Oh, both tanks are dead. I see LB2 being used. This is still doable. It might be like very painfully, like, you know, but it's...
Enrage begins casting.
Oh no,
It's
oh
close.
no, oh no.
We don't have the damage. 1%.
1%.
It was so close.
No!
And thanks to the maintenance, we do not have time to try again.
Oh,
Day
so
3 was fairly
frustrating.
uneventful due to the fact that our machinist friend wasn't anywhere to be found. I kept an eye out, but the
that's-
party finder
that's
just
frustrating.
never went up. I never saw it. What was really significant about today, though, was the sheer quantity of people hopping into my chat to see if there was an update, if we'd gotten the clear for them yet. When would we be going next? Viewers are invested. They wanted to see Fury clear as much as I did, and it was so heartening to see people from the chat cheering them on, excited to celebrate their victory alongside them. Somebody even took the initiative to do what I had not, and found a way to contact them on Discord to see if they'd be trying that evening. When we got the reply, it was that, no, they wouldn't. Tomorrow, they said. Tomorrow will be the day they become the legend.
Yo, let's go. This is the clear. Hopefully. I don't know. The ending might be that they just never got the kill. Ooh. Oh no! Wait, what the? Wait, hold on. I'm actually curious. What the f happened there? They overlap? Yeah, it looks like it just unfortunately overlapped. What the? F Were they just like in the wrong place? That was weird. That's weird. Is this the clear for the guy with only one hand? Yeah. Sam was late. Ah, I see. Oh no. You just gotta believe. You just gotta believe. Okay, Ed's done. Everyone got buffs. Nobody died. Exoflare. Yo, let's go. That's like what.
There is no high moral of the story, nor some performative closing statement that pats myself on the back for helping, because this isn't some novel, one-of-a-kind situation. I'll remember those 4 evenings helping Fury clear UCOB because I had fun. This is just one of dozens of good experiences I had with random players in 2024, of meeting people and pushing towards a clear with them. One of many who took it upon themselves to achieve their goal in game regardless of how daunting it was, and persevered until it was within their grasp. Nor am I special for helping. There are so many that will do the exact same just for the enjoyment of being there, pressing some buttons and sharing in that moment in the end. If there's something you want to achieve in-game, go out and do it, just like Fury did. In July, Dawntrail released. These events are meant to be peaks for MMO players, a huge burst of excitement with new things to do and experience, enough that it could take weeks or even months to fully digest them. It's a time for catching up with old friends, as your seasonal buddies resubscribe to the game to enjoy the next chapter of their hobby for a couple of months, before slowly lapsing through the filter back to their regular lives, until the next one. Friends lists are alive, city-states a kaleidoscope of social activity, and the party finder is the most varied it'll be for the next 2 years. For players like me, those that remain long after the hype has died down, settled into a comfortable rhythm, these are the best and most fulfilling times to play the game. A celebration of all that makes MMOs the most uniquely enriching gaming genre. Dawntrail felt different, though. Final Fantasy XIV has for the past decade been firmly locked in a singular direction, hurtling singularly down the track towards its grand finale, picking up passengers to its snowballing hype with each passing patch. With the conclusion of Endwalker, that journey is done. The train is finished its service and being decommissioned. Many understandably are left with a sense of malaise when Dawntrail attempts to pick up the leftover pieces of this 10-year saga and slot them back together into something new. Whether it can live up to the heights of the Zodiac and Hydaelyn arc is unclear, but ultimately it's irrelevant because we won't see the fruits of those labors for at least another expansion or 2. What we have right now is all prelude, and all we can do is try to judge it by its own merits. Despite such a vast paradigm shift in narrative direction and tone, at a micro level, the game feels the same as ever. Content can be lined up almost one for one with what came before in Shadowbringers and Endwalker, both in quantity, cadence, and release tempo, including the distinct lack of any compelling funnels to bring large numbers of individuals from all corners of the community together.
I mean, that's not entirely true. We had a bit more content in 6.1 than in 7.1. We already had islands and everything, but that's just semantics.
Of Dawntrail's theme of discovery through the adventure to the new world, being directly juxtaposed with the formulaic nature of its patch content is not something that's lost on me. The trust and goodwill that have been accrued from so many home runs in succession is not enough to hide the cracks that are gradually festering, poisoning those initial positive feelings. This sentiment is one that has become commonplace of late, and for me personally, it's been the storm cloud over my summer vacation. Whilst I'm having fun, and I've learned to temper my expectations and just enjoy new releases for what they are, moving on when my fun evaporates, I have watched friends and peers one by one leap off the wagon likely never to return. It's just not the same anymore, one would claim. The jobs are all identical, and not in a good way, another would cite. The game has been the exact same since Shadowbringers, a third would laugh. The hobby that brought us together is just something that doesn't spark joy for them anymore, and they're going. And whilst we'll keep in touch as best we can, in parallel to their spent interest in FF14, it won't be the same. If we speak candidly, this is completely normal. It is the nature of playing live service video games that last for years and years. People will come and go. Players will bleed
Rinon said, "Come." sorry.
during low points and surge to share in the highs, and you will make friends only to see them move on with their lives, whilst you remain at your in-game vigil. I think this time it hit a little harder for me, because a long-standing member of my static, somebody that I've been playing with for 6 years at this point, quit the game after the most recent Ultimate. Not because he was getting too busy to keep raiding, or because of any disagreement, but solely because he doesn't like the game anymore. My best friend in the Final Fantasy XIV streaming space, Stahl, recently announced that she has no interest in streaming or dedicating herself to the game anymore. A peer who built up their audience at roughly the same time as me, Saranaya, recently took a hiatus as well. His palpable sense of bitterness.
God, I'm getting nervous. I genuinely hope this is like just not a very long and prolonged announcement that Rinon is also going on hiatus. Oh, there's like a 1 minute, 2 minutes left to a video, and I'm very actually frustrated. Like, I hope Rinon doesn't say all of a sudden, like, you know what? Me too. I'm quitting. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm going to be playing GTA 5 RP. Let's go.
Direct result of the game's direction being opposite of that which he hoped it would be. I'm sure you, as well, have stories just like this. Just as some leave, others will come. New players will arrive, bright-eyed and in awe of the exact same experiences that made us long-time subscribers. New meetings and friendships will blossom, new content creators will rise to replace those that leave. And whether it's in the short or long-term future, Square Enix will address hot topic discussions such as job identity and large-scale long-term content lacking for at least half of each expansion. But it makes me ruminate on myself more than anything. How long am I still going to be here? How much longer will I keep having fun? How many more friends will unsubscribe and our conversations eventually taper off into memory? With that in mind, I'm determined to make 2025 my best year yet. I want to enjoy my hobby to the fullest, organize groups, help people, make the most of patch content with my buddies. I want to make creative videos that I've been too hesitant to in the past. I want to stream without fear of the machinations of algorithms, and when these things don't come naturally, I won't force them. I want to experience the MSQ for the first time, and see what all the fuss is about. If at some point the only thing we'll be left with is memories of Eorzea and the friends
Sorry, what the f did Rinon say? Hold on.
hesitant to in the past. I want to stream without fear of the machinations of algorithms, and when these things don't come naturally, I won't force them. I want to experience the MSQ for the first time.
I want to experience the MSQ for the first time. All right, I forgot. Rinon is a raider. Skipping MSQ is kind of a very automatic process for most of them. I was like, we're in Dawn Trail 7.0 and everything. What do you mean experience MSQ for the first time?
And see what all the fuss is about. If at some point the only thing we'll be left with is memories of Eorzea and the friends we made there, we might as well make them some damn good ones. Oh, and Fru release. That was pretty fun too, I guess.
Cool. Good video. Good video. I enjoyed that video. That is a really good video. I hope Rinon stops being nervous and just starts actually releasing the stories and the content she feels confident with. Well, not confident, but like comfortable with. If Rinon ever sees this video, I'll be your friend. I will hang out with you. I'll join Party Finder groups with you. I'm shit at the game, but I'll join. I'll join you. Is my Party Finder filled? Fuck, not yet.